And let's start there. Blake Baker coming home as the defensive coordinator. Of course, Baker spent the past 2 seasons at the University of Missouri. And as we said, he was on the 21 staff for LSU as the linebackers coach. Very familiar with South Louisiana. Played at Tulane, played 5 years at Tulane. Was a guy that was a defensive coordinator at Louisiana Tech. He spent some time at the University of Miami coaching the linebackers, and then he ended up in Baton Rouge for a season in 2021 before ultimately taking the defensive coordinator job at Missouri. He was also a guy that was on staff when Brian Kelly got the job here, but Kelly did not have a time or a chance, it seems like, to sit down and at least to get to know Blake Baker. And I think during this process, the interview process, that was able to happen. And Baker, from all accounts, was he was the first on the list. He was the only guy that they talked to. He was the guy that they wanted on this search, throughout this search, the most, and was able to get a deal done with him on Friday night. So Baker coming home from or coming back to Baton Rouge, I would say would be a home run of a hire. You could not have done, from my point of view, any better. You may have been able to get somebody as good, but I don't think you could have done any better than getting Blake Baker to come back to LSU than what Brian Kelly in the LSU football program pulled off on Friday night. In Baker, you get a proven defensive caller and commodity in the league over the last 2 seasons. You've seen where Missouri's defense has ranked and played, and really played an aggressive, almost kind of reminds you of an LSU style, a retro LSU style of defense that, really counted on their athletes on the outside, would play one-on-one, and in between the hash marks had their ears pinned back, and were trying to get after the quarterback and calls and create turnovers. So I think it's going to be a very welcomed, style of play with Baker.
Is he coaching linebackers at LSU?
Yeah, he'll coach the linebackers too.
Because I know he was coaching the safeties at
Missouri.
I believe he'll bring his outside linebackers coach with him too. I think that there's, if he does bring anybody with him, it'll be a guy that helps with the outside, the pass rushers and the outside edge guys. But I don't quote me on him coaching the linebackers, but I know that he will coach a position.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense, right? Because that's where Matt House was that's where he said his status was defensive coordinator, linebackers coach. So you can fill the void there twice, and then obviously you still have some wiggle room with what you want to do with the cornerbacks and safeties. So it could be another potential. There's Stu. I don't know if you let him. This is my question to you: is he going to bring in his own staff outside of perchance the linebackers coach, or is he going to be all right? Now I want to pick my people that work with me, or is LSU still pursuing kind of the names that we've heard, whether it be a Corey Raymond or a Bo Davis? Would that have any effect with Baker?
Well, I think that's what's being discussed right now. When you got the deal done, now for Baker to be on staff, and there's been a lot of chatter around Corey Raymond of a guy that could be joining the staff. We also heard a report over the weekend that Bo Davis had taken his name out of the running on Friday night after some negotiation and talks back and forth with schools, including LSU. I will tell you that I talked to somebody last night, very connected and close to this negotiation, that says that Bo Davis's name has popped back in it over the last 24 hours as somebody as somebody who could be a candidate. I think right now it looks as if he would be staying at the University of Texas, but I don't think that the door is completely shut on Davis. I know that there were some reports that in fact were speaking in very much certainty that Davis would not be moving on from Texas, and it seems like that could be the case right now. But I don't think that his name is completely out of it when you talk about what the potential could be as somebody who could join as well.
If he is out of it, where do they turn?
That's a good question. I have heard the Memphis defensive line coach, Peoples, let me get you his first name, as
there's Kyle Pope in Memphis, and then Kevin Peoples is the Missouri.
Yes,
defensive
I'm sorry.
line coach.
Not Memphis, Missouri. Kyle Peoples.
Kevin.
Excuse me, Kevin Peoples. Is somebody who I believe he played at Bama, and is like a Pete Jenkins, like disciple, and somebody who has really, his name has popped up a lot as somebody who could be a defensive line. Now, I've asked about Jamar Cain, and Cain's his specialty was not necessarily coaching the interior defensive line, the outside guys, the outside backers was really where he was most confident, and I think his name was a possibility before talking to Baker of like him bringing his guy with him. I think that there's an outside backers guy that potentially could come with Blake Baker and in Peoples, which would pull Jamar Cain's name, probably out of it. So, there is some things behind the scenes that's happening right now to watch. I would say Peoples as the defensive line, Kyle Peoples as a defensive line name. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Bo Davis. Bo Davis over the weekend. Seems like his name has been
waffling.
Yes, pulled in. In fact, kind of back in it. Who knows what the status of it is currently right now? But from a negotiation standpoint, I think this is something that they want to wrap this staff up pretty quickly. But Blake Baker coming as the defensive line coach,
defensive coordinator.
Or excuse me, the defensive coordinator was huge news on Friday to start
Big
that.
time.
To start that,
Yeah.
I think you'll start to see
Gonna recap that segment.
I think you'll start to see a change in the LSU defense too, because you can see the reaction from just some of the players, just when they got the news, like of how excited they were. Former players talking about how they're coming back just because Blake Baker's the defensive coordinator. So you could just see the excitement in the room, and when you like your coach, you play a lot harder for him.
Also saw some news from like Mason Smith.
Eyeballs.
I think that you'll get some good news there. I think that was some positive momentum of seeing that type of news, seeing that stuff get done. What's that?
Because as of Friday, Mason Smith is a third-round pick. So
yes,
that's where the mock drafts have him.
Yeah,
Mekhi Wingo's same place. They had him going back to back in the third round. So.
Hey, Mekhi can still come back if he'd like.
I think that's probably the ceiling for Mekhi.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a lot.
I'd say second round would probably be like late first.
Depends on how you could go test. Mm-hmm. I think from on the field standpoint,
he's done everything he can.
He's done everything he can. He's answered every question he can. From Mason Smith's standpoint, I think there's still questions left to be answered. And, from the past 72 hours in the news that LSU football has received, you would seem like that would be very positive for what the possibility in the future of Mason Smith could be as far as potentially next season.